Hello friends, and welcome to the 13th episode of Dulcius Ex Asperus, where I bring you cozy news and crafty politics. As you can tell, today we're going to do something a little different than usual. We're going to decorate this very blank laptop while we talk about a little news. Let's start with the stickers that I know I have to include, like this adorable sheep that I found at the local yarn store. I was absolutely sad when Joann's closed, like I think every other crafty person I know. But the bright side is it's forced me to find the local yarn and fabric stores in my area and give them a little business. The first bit of good news I have is that a large group of scientists has come forward to denounce the Trump administration's climate report and to point out what the science says, which is that yes, humans are the main driver behind climate change, and yes, we should do something about it. And while this all sounds very obvious, it takes a lot of courage these days to stand up to the guy who's made it his business to retaliate against anyone he can, in any way he can, for telling the truth. This is one of my favorite stickers. It's an illustration by Bailey J, but I don't think there's room for it. In other good news, a judge ruled in Harvard's favor, saying that the Trump administration could not withhold funding based on unsubstantiated or flimsy claims of anti-Semitism. Now, like everything, there will be appeals here, but it's good to see things heading in the right direction. And in my favorite bit of good news for this week, a judge has blocked the central pillar of Trump's mass deportation campaign. Basically, the administration has been deporting everyone they can as quickly as they can without taking into account the ties that person has to their community or whether or not they've been trying to follow the process. It reminds me of that meme I've seen pop up on social media about how if you're arresting tax-paying immigrants who are following the law, is it really about immigration, or is it more about this performative cruelty? That performative cruelty is a tactic. If the administration can numb you to the suffering of another human being, if it can convince you that certain classes of human beings are expendable, it can get away with all sorts of things. That's why I was super happy to see this news in June, where Trump's top general was quietly but firmly contradicting Trump, saying that immigrants weren't an invasion force, Putin wouldn't stop at taking over Ukraine, and there wasn't a rebellion in Los Angeles, which was Trump's justification for deploying the National Guard there. This is good news. I haven't even told you about all these stickers yet. That sparkly fairy there is another Bailey J illustration, as are these really pretty flowers that I don't have room for. And the patriarchy is a plague and that adorable raccoon that is anxious but brave are both from Art Crawl. When I start to get too anxious, I look for little ways I can help and for the ways other people are helping. This, in case you were wondering, is an agave plant. Why do I have a sticker of an agave plant? It's a long story, but I kind of like him. He might make the cut. Anyway, in other good legal news, the District of Columbia is suing the Trump administration over the deployment of the National Guard. Trump is claiming he needs to do this because of a public safety emergency, but it turns out that all the places with the worst violent crime rates are not the places where President Trump is sending troops. Even if Trump's claims about the crime rate in D.C. were true, his justification for sending troops to D.C. and L.A. are still problematic. The law specifically forbids using the military for domestic law enforcement purposes, except in the cases of extreme emergencies and only under limited circumstances. Sorry for the time jump. I needed to rip apart some stickers with my bare hands. I am filming in a hotel room, if you hadn't noticed, so my tools and my setup here is a little limited. This is not the first time, and I doubt it will be the last, that Trump invents an emergency declaration to justify whatever it is he wants to do. He has, unfortunately, successfully used emergency declarations to justify hundreds of actions, and the courts haven't always stood up to him. Frankly, politicians and business leaders haven't been doing a great job either. That means it's our turn now to buck up and fight fascism. I'm learning that leaders are often followers, and they will only challenge the powers that be to the extent that the public asks them to. So we all need to start asking our political leaders to challenge Trump's power grab. Why has Trump been so busy creating distractions and controversies for us all to focus on? Because that Epstein story just won't go away. Of course the left wants to talk about it, because it's a failed campaign promise. And segments of Trump's base want to talk about it because, yeah, they were promised that Trump would provide them with the answers for all sorts of conspiracies, and now that he's in charge and he could potentially provide those answers, he doesn't want to. He also definitely doesn't want to talk about how people are unhappy. They don't feel like they can get ahead. Consumer confidence is sliding. His economic policies aren't working. That one big, beautiful budget act that the Republicans passed isn't very popular. Of course, if your economic policies are unpopular and you haven't followed through on your campaign promises, you can always fall back on the good old culture wars. There was a tragic shooting August 27th in Minneapolis, and the shooter was transgender. But do you remember the last time there was a school shooting by a cisgender person, and the government went looking for ways to ban guns specifically for cisgender people? No, because it hasn't happened. The transgender community is an easy target for the right and conservatives. The Nazi Party in Germany also targeted the transgender community, and I'm guessing for the same reasons. Empathy is based on a shared understanding, and the experiences transgender people have are so different from what cisgender people experience. This Hex the Patriarchy sticker, it has to be my favorite of all the ones I picked up at Art Crawl, and actually related to a bunch of the stories we've talked about today. A patriarchal model divides people into two mutually exclusive categories. Men are strong and brave and stoic, and women are considered to be weak and soft and caring. Forrest Hansen had a really good discussion on his podcast about how limiting this model is for everyone. It's bad for women, it's bad for non-binary people, and it's bad for men too. When we try to force people to live within these very strict binary frameworks, we get stupid ideas, like this. Project 2025 has informed a lot of the Trump administration's policies, and now they have a new idea: cutting back on the social services that support parents working outside the home to force at least one parent to stay at home with the kids. And let's be real here, if you're forcing one parent to stay at home, it's probably going to end up being the woman. Taking away childcare and using financial levers to force people to stay in relationships doesn't create strong families. That creates hostage situations. Here's the thing. I've known a lot of strong women in my family. Some stayed at home managing households and children. Some worked in offices. They all worked hard. and they all had to make choices on how best they could provide for their families in a way that was true to themselves. Men and women and non-binary people should get to live full lives according to what they want to do. Alright, I think we're getting close, and I need both hands to finish putting these on my laptop. So I'm going to stop filming for a little bit, and then we'll meet back up, and I'll leave you with the final thought I always leave you with, which is something constructive you can do this week, if you feel like you want to. And here is our final product. So many stickers I had to leave out because I didn't have space. As I record this, I'm sitting in Chicago, the next city that Trump has threatened to send National Guard troops into, and I did consider before my trip if I was going to be in danger. But of course, I'm not in danger yet. I have privilege in ways that are protecting me, that mean I can speak up. I can take some risks that other people can't. And do you like this new banner? Let me know. My suggested action for this episode is to look up this book, or a source like it. Imagine a better world, and then maybe you'll be able to imagine your role in getting us there.